Mr. Dunlop, good morning, good evening. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you, Lee?
Yeah, good. I mean, when that music, I really need to sort that intro out because I can do it. But anyway.
I think we're onto something there. I reckon if we practice, it can almost look like the same person.
Yes, yeah, even more so than it does now. Even more so. So this is I don't know, is it episode 4? It's number 4, conversation number 4 of the LinkedIn Lives in this latest thing, and we're going to do something different. The first 3 we're all talking about leadership and some of the challenges between lean and well, in fact, it started with lean and then it moved into leadership and saving time. And then we decided that this one is going to talk about I guess the journey of a lean coach. So we both live in different countries on opposite sides of the world, but we do similar things in similar ways with a similar ethos. So I thought it'd be a really good conversation to talk about, I guess, 2 or 3 things. One, our journey to get to doing what we do. And I think that for me, there's a number of different phases in that. And then what makes a lean coach or consultant, and what do we believe the attributes are? I think with those 2 things, really, I'd quite like to explore in this conversation. Anything in particular for yourself?
No, all of the above. I think the conversation feels like it's like a snowball. Really, we started with one thing, and each thing I think just keeps rolling into the next, to the next, to the next. If we have an audience, if some kind people have turned up once again for an hour of torture with us, I'm interested to see what people, their experience, whether they're consultants or internal people or functional managers practicing, but also their experience of coaches, internal and external, and see the good, the bad, the ugly of their experience. I think let's throw it all out there, because I think, again, it's a spectrum. What works for some doesn't work for others, and I guess it's all situational as well. So yeah, where are we going to start? Are we going to start with listening to?
In fact, I think Dean has just said hello. So good morning, good evening, guys. Danny Gregory has just said, hey, guys, hope everyone is well. I'm not seeing anything yet, so hoping you're still to start. So maybe, hopefully. Maybe that's Danny's computer, or I don't know, because Dean said good morning before Danny says he can't see anything. Anyway, so hopefully the world can see us. You're far better at this than I, Paul, because you've just invited audience contribution and participation. I was just after having a lovely chat with you. You're far more inclusive than I. But so when we think about the journey of a lean coach, lean consultant, I think there's 3 career paths that I've seen. Career path number 1 is somebody is become trained in improvement, and then they stay as an internal improvement person throughout their career, so like a continuous improvement manager. Career path number 2, they'll do that, but then they'll break out like us into the external world and then be parachuted into businesses to support them, so they become an external consultant. And career path number 3 is they'll have an improvement role, but then they'll transition back into the operation or back into the function, but just with the capability and the skills that they've learned from an improvement. And I see there's 3 typical career paths for somebody that starts on this improvement journey. And do you see any more than those 3?
I think they're the typical ones. I think that's what you're going to commonly see out there. I think there's a few other outliers in all of that, but yeah, I think that's a good representation. Absolutely.
Yeah, perfect. So what, when you're saying and you're asking the question, it'd be good if people would let us know whether they're which one of the 3 of those that they are. And in fact, Dean's just said, for me, the most interesting point is, how do you proceed with the initial introduction to a new client team? How do you sell what you've been brought in to do? So Dean's a consultant. And trying to flog the what exactly like we do, try to sell the services and to help people transition into a better place. We will get onto that shortly, but I think firstly, your journey, Paul, from tools or from kind of, I guess, what gives a quick whistle stop tour of how you've got to this path that you're now on as an external lean coach consultant?
It's a pretty simple and not very interesting journey, or maybe it is. I don't know. So my journey started 20 something years ago. I fell into manufacturing. There was no design behind what I did. I started with a greenfield business. So a Japanese company came to my town and decided to build a factory, and I got a job there basically and started working on the production line. So it was absolute greenfield site, starting from scratch, and a lot of my manufacturing development and how I cut my teeth was just through sheer need and desperation in many respects. So yeah, just very first-hand grassroots knowledge on the front lines. I then stepped into a leadership role. Um, because it was a Japanese company, I always say, obviously, because you're Japanese doesn't make you lean, but there was some exposure, and I started to get a little bit of exposure. I think I remember we had someone from Japan came over and taught us some basic 5S, and then my boss at the time bought me Gemba Kaizen by Masaki Imai, and that's sort of been my Bible ever since. And really, my journey was reading that book cover to cover, picking out some of these tools and concepts, and starting just to apply them in my own way. So I started with a visual management board and doing daily meetings, 5S, starting to do, some basic Kanban and things like that. So I just played with the tools very simply and made lots of mistakes, lots of things I think worked really well. And I probably look back and, think, wow, that I actually did, a reasonable job with knowing not much. So again, very simple, very humble beginnings, again, just based on need, a lot of trial and error. Because it was a greenfield site, there was a lot of, I was able to do that. I had a sand pit, and it was pretty safe. There was nothing there, no preconceived ideas, no structure. We just made it up literally as we went along. And from that, I guess as I went on, then I'm not sure. I think people go through this similar journeys that I started to read too many books and started to overcomplicate what again is a very simple philosophy, and got lost in all of that. And it probably I drifted for quite a few years, still practicing. I was in functional management positions, implementing. I was embedded in a lot of cultural change as well in any role I went into. I probably went into 3 or 4 roles into pretty poor cultures, starting from zero over and over again, which was a really good grounding for what I do now. But I guess over the last few years, I've just really stripped everything back to raw simplicity, and I'm just getting probably more and more simple in my practice and my delivery. So it's kind of been like that. Like I'll say as well, when I come to a client, I'll learn way more from that client than they will from me, and I genuinely believe that. So that the learning never ends for me, and I think my journey, will go to the day I stop doing this stuff. Every day even through just speaking to somebody or listening to somebody, there's something new for me. There's a light bulb moment. So I think that's the beauty of that. So bit of a long-winded answer, but again, simple beginnings, no formal training, just learnt through experience. I've got to work with some good consultants over the years, and here I am.
Yeah, amazing. There's a number of things that I want to talk to you about there. But just before, so Danny he's online. He's got us now, and Rob Bull is awake. But
look out, Rob.
Potentially not
we're
for
going
very
to
much longer.
That, don't worry.
Yeah, and I think what you've just articulated there is your journey, and I don't think there's any two journeys the same, because the things that you learn are the things that you learn at the time based on either what's in front of you or what you're seeing and stuff like that. I think learning is a key part. I think we should talk about learning again shortly. If I just really quickly go through mine, I think there's 3 phases to my place or career. I think whatever I do now, there's 3 phases to it, and I think because I was in the public sector in 2006, and I was handpicked to be trained in improvement or the version of the lean thing. I was trained in a lot of tools and techniques, and I thought I'd seen the light. I thought I'd seen that how a whiteboard can transform an organization, how problem solving was so important, how 5S was revolutionary. I thought all of these tools were the thing, and how wrong was I? Very wrong. And phase 1 was really just about this sheep dipped in training and submerged in tools and yeah, it was trying to practice and trying to steamroller those through the organization as an internal coach or internal consultant. Then after that, I decided to change and move companies, and it became about projects and programs. Then it was like, oh, I've got the skills and I've got the capability to do this. So why don't I kind of make it look at it horizontally and try to like identify the waste in a horizontal value stream and try to pluck out and re-engineer and make things better. So from tools, it then became projects and programs. And I was wrong again, because then I stopped doing that, and then co-founded the business 4 and a bit years ago. And before that, it was about people became really important in this whole equation that I hadn't even factored into really. So it was like tools, and it was projects and programs, and then now it's about people, and everything else is just to support the person as opposed to the person supporting everything else. And that for me has been the 3, I guess, stages or phases of my learning to get to where I am. But I think I've needed to do that to understand the importance of the role of people within it. And now it's all about people. But I wonder what the next phase is going to be. But anyway, so I'll just stop there. But go on.
I was going to ask where have been the biggest light bulb moments for you? Or has it been a light bulb moment, or
a couple? There's a couple. Well, two or 3. One of them is the first time I walked out with a whiteboard into an office and said to the team that this is going to change your life. Just put your performance on here, and it's going to be better. That was a light bulb moment when I looked back at everybody that was in front of me, and it was like this, like that. So that was one light bulb moment. Actually, I'm doing it the wrong way around. Another one is when I was leader. So then that was in phase 1. In phase 2, when it was the projects and programs bit of it, I remember saying to a guy that he needs to move desks from here to here as part of the solution. It was just going to make it all better. And it was, to me, it was a really small change, but to him it was a massive change because he'd sat in that desk for 10 years with a window seat next to Josie and stuff, pictures of his kids. And it was like I was asking him to move house and uproot his family and change cities, but it was literally diagonal. So again, that was a fundamental learning. And then the third one, which we've spoken about a few times, is that in losing my best mate as well, was another, I guess, like proper light bulb, life-changing moment where it just really reinforced people are important, because his 3 lessons were always be yourself, making good friends, and recognizing that time's limited. And I think those 3 things really just shine a light on the importance of people in this whole thing. And so I think learning and people, I think, are the 2 cruxes of all of this. Jim Longton has just said, good morning, Jim. Hope you are well. So yeah, so that for me is my journey to get to here. And I think a lot of people, they're at different stages of their careers, at different stages of their learning. Based on what we've said so far, what advice or thoughts, or what are you thinking currently, Paul, about what we've said so far?
A lot. Yeah, no, it's it's an interesting one. I think what I'm thinking about though is where does one start? I guess I have a lot of people come to me over LinkedIn who are perhaps starting to become interested in lean. They've seen a little bit. They see all of the content online, and they think, yep, I want to be, a Lee Houghton. How do I do that? How do I start to take that step? So I think there's certainly part of that is how do I make that next step, or how do I get into this? There was periods of time. I mean, I did this as a functional manager. There was periods in my career where I never thought I'd get to do this full time, and that's not a great place to be. So I think that there's part of it. I think the other part of it is if then you are an internal person or you are an external consultant, where do you start? What are those first steps? What are the most important things in that journey in implementing? Because again, there's probably some different schools of thought out there as to how you do that and what's going to give you the highest degree of success. Let's be honest, none of it's easy, and I'm sure that people listening to us today will know that it's not easy, and that there's some bloody noses along the way. So I think a bit of a ramble there, but it's probably how do you get into this, and then where do you start, depending on your position, I guess.
Yeah, because there's two journeys, isn't there? So Rob Bull has just commented saying more than where to start, but how to engage the team. But I think there's two journeys. There's the journey that we go on as individually, and then there's the journey that we facilitate and support with a team or business or department or function or whatever. And I think if we just look at our own individual journey, so if it is that example that you've just given there, where somebody reached out and go, I want to get into this improvement thing, and where do I start? Do you think you could do what you do without the lived experience that you've had, and do you think, or not?
No, not a chance. I think there has to be a deep well of resilience, a deep well of confidence in knowing where it can go and that you can get there. That because the first 6, 12, 18 months can be really, really difficult, and you're going to doubt yourself, doubt the approach, doubt the tools, doubt absolutely everything. And you need to be able to continue to keep getting back up and going again and going again and going again. So for me, I've got the confidence of knowing I know it works. I know the approach works. I've got a deep trust in the process. And like we're talking before, sometimes it's just not going to work for whatever reason. But I think the thing that keeps me going for sure is that, and again, I've had the experience of many failures, and again, you're experimenting, you're going through PDCA, you're finding out more and more what works and what doesn't, what the best and most effective way to go is. And like I said, for me, more and more, it's about simplicity, and it's about practical application. And again, like Rob said, it is all about engaging hearts and minds and finding a way to do that. I think, like put in the survey, the biggest, I think we had 60% there, ability to connect and engage. You have to be able to connect and develop meaningful human relationships with the people that you're working with. I think that's the key element. We had deep knowledge, 2%. So it doesn't really matter. No enough. Know your shit, but you don't have to have the propeller on top of the head and know the ins and outs of it all. That's not important. It doesn't matter how much you know, but you've got to be able to translate what you do know, and people to be able to relate to that, to understand it, and to be able to apply that.
Yes, yeah, love it. Jim has just has commented, spot on, Paul, and he then said, you can't teach lean, you've got to do it. And that I think to the Socrates quote. I cannot teach anybody anything. I can only make them think. And it's a conscious choice whether they absorb whatever we're saying with the intent that we mean in their mind, and then what they do with that information. And I think, but that starts with us as well. I think is what we've said so far is the importance of learning. And I think this, when we talk about the journey of a lean coach, lean consultant, doing what we do, improvement person, it's a infinite career, not a finite career. It's a journey over a period of time, I think, and not for a particular role within a particular organization for a particular period. I think it's a conscious choice that it's an infinite journey, because we've got to learn continuously. Like you said before, is every organization you go and you learn more than potentially they do, because you're learning about the challenges, the different ways and how to deal with people and engage and connect, and the logic that's put the processes in place previous, all of this thing we're consistently learning. Do you think you can be successful having a finite approach to improvement?
Yes and no.
You sit on that fence.
I'll sit on it. I'll get splinters right up my backside. Yeah, you can, but it's not going to be a sustainable success. You're not going to build capability. Things will backslide. It just is like, there's continuous in the word continuous improvement. So yes, you can. If it's a project-based approach, absolutely you will have success. Generally, my experience of those things is that it's not about engagement in any sort of way. It's slash and burn and get the job done. It's very quick and dirty. It will deliver a sugar high in some respects, and then, as I say, it's really got very little chance of sustaining. I'm sure I won't speak for you, but I'm sure you've had similar experiences. It frustrates me with lean organisations that rely on your ventriloquism talents, just
Yeah.
incredibly.
Yeah.
Um,
the postman's just arrived, and the dog is going. He's going crazy. I think that's in agreement. In agreement to everything that you're saying, Paul. If I'm honest.
Yeah.
The dog is in huge agreement to you. I think when you were speaking, then you had me thinking all sorts of things. All right, this whole project mentality is like antibiotics. We go to the doctor for a pill, medicine, antibiotics to fix a short-term thing. But the thing that has made us ill, our lifestyle choice or whatever, might still remain. And I think there's if I was to just make it black and white, it's the difference between those two things. I think living healthy or taking a pill.
Yeah, it's a crash diet, if you will. We're just kind of skipping all of that. And I mean, ultimately, what are we trying to do? We're trying to build habits over time, which change behavior, which change a culture. So I guess the answer to the question is yes, absolutely. You can go in and make some change in a project-based week or month or whatever it might be, but don't expect that now we're lean and now we're going to have long-term sustainable success. You're not going to have buy-in. There's going to be all sorts of cultural damage done through that process. So yeah, ultimately it does work, but it really doesn't work. And again, I was about to say, I get frustrated by these organizations that now we'll do a Kaizen event and we'll do these 2 or 3 events throughout the year, and again we think this is what lean is. Lean for me is the discipline of showing up every single day. What about your experience? I mean, in terms of you drawing on your knowledge, how does that, do you go to that well every day? Has that experience stood you in good stead over the course of your consulting business?
I much prefer asking you the questions, Paul, than answering any questions. But say in all seriousness, though, so I think that the one thing that's really helped conversations like this, the podcast that I've got is just an amazing thing for me to learn from amazing people who have done it. So I am consistently learning every single day, and in my content, it's a journey. So I post every day on LinkedIn, as do you. Publish the podcast once a week, and it's a mixture of conversations and interviews. But I'm also working in clients as well each week, and every single interaction I have is an opportunity to learn something. And I am at the start of the podcast, it says the most improvement person. I'm not, and that's because where I started from was so far behind everybody else. So I want to continuously improve doing what I do, and I challenge myself every single day to improve. I want to also be a conduit for all of the lessons that I've got, and share them as often as I possibly can, because that allows me selfishly to internalize them more. The more I speak about the stuff that's happened and my failures and my challenges and the conversations that I've had, the more I internalize it myself.
Why do you say you started so far behind everybody else?
Because I think, like, when I started doing what I was doing, there was people in the team that had done it before. They'd had much more of a management. I was the youngest one in the team. I think this tells you just more about my own self-talk about where I started from. And I was the youngest one in the team. I had the least amount of management experience. I was chosen. I didn't choose it, and it was because a manager at the time said to me that they thought I would be good at this thing that they were going through. So I genuinely believe that when I walked into the team and I saw everybody else there was consultants that they were supporting who've been consultants for a long period of time. So this is back in 2006. There was consultants there that had been there doing it for a long period of time. There was people on the team that had been doing it for a lot longer than me. I was the youngest one, and I was the most junior one and stuff. So that's why I say that. It's like, because that's what I felt at the time, at the start of my journey. I felt like I was starting from here, and everybody else was here. And that for me was one of my biggest drives and motivators for this continuous learning that you spoke about before, which is why I share so much. I think change has been the best job and the worst job I've ever had. It's been the best job when people have those penny drop moments and you see and you just see people like growing individually. But then it's the worst job when and I've been in this position a number of times when it's like just been this voice, like when I'm having a conversation with someone and they're like, well, no, that won't work here, or we don't do it that way here, or no, they're never going to buy into that, and you're too different, and all of that stuff. I felt really, really lonely, and I think that one of the catalysts for me starting the podcast and being so active socially on social media and stuff is because I don't want others to feel as lonely, because it is really lonely if you're the only person doing it. So hopefully these types of conversations help others that are maybe feeling the way that I felt in the last 16, 17 years.
Yeah. And I think our job as continuous improvement advocates or the torchbearers for these philosophies and these principles are really, like you've described, is to bridge that gap between the people who feel that they don't deserve a seat at the table, or they don't have a voice, or that they've got nothing valid or worthy to contribute, because that we know that's not the case, and we know there's so much latent talent and potential and great ideas and innovation and so on and so forth, and we've got to bring those people forward. I think that's your journey, my journey is the same. There's been many moments throughout my career where I've felt I've got absolute there's senior people around the table, much more experienced people, and I felt I've absolutely nothing to contribute. Sometimes when I'm sitting, in a client with a bunch of frontline people and they've got all the technical knowledge, I'm the idiot in the room. I've got nothing to contribute. All I can do is ask a few questions. What for you, Lee? What are if we're talking about someone either taking the first steps into consulting or into an internal role, what are the key attributes?
Yeah, okay. So I'll just read a couple of comments actually. So Dean has put, you need to see failures as learning successes. And I think that would be an answer I would give to that question. Jim has put, I've only been at this for 50 years, so still have a lot to learn. I think that is another perfect answer to the question that you've just asked. Danny then said, Jim said, lean is simply a way of life. Danny has said, Jim Longton, yup, it's a mindset. And Rob has said the naive perspective allows you to ask why. I think for me, it's seeing it as like Jim says, a way of life. It's a way of being, isn't it? It's not just a thing to do. It's how we are and how we be. And I think if you want to continuously learn, if you want to develop, and you've got that in yourself, I think that's a key attribute. I think wanting to help others from a selfless perspective, I think, rather than a selfish perspective, is key. Just to really, and I promise not to. I've just thought to use the word selfish and selfless, and I'm going to talk about myself at the minute now, which I don't like. But when I've done the podcast and post every day on LinkedIn, people have said to me and give me feedback in the past. Oh, you just want to be famous, you just want to like grow a following and have all the connections and stuff. And that's bollocks. That's not the reason why. The reason why is what I've said 10, 15 minutes ago, is because it's the loneliest place in the world when you're the only voice in an organization as an internal change person trying to make things better when in a world when nobody else thinks it could be. And if there's things that you can listen to, see, hear, that just give you that little bit of motivation, that spark, that other new question to ask, that thought that just takes you in a slightly different direction. And if I can play a tiny role in that by sharing some of the ways that I've messed up, some of the lessons that I've had each day, then that's what I want to do. And I think we use the word lean, but as an improvement community, we are not very good at working together. We are far better at working in our silos and trying to prove how good we are as individuals. I think if we can create a connection of improvement people that just help each other, because all we want is today to be better than yesterday, and we want everybody to help make today better than yesterday, then what an amazing place that would be. So to answer your question, I think would be to try to not lead with ego, but to lead with humility or humbleness or like vulnerability. Just be human. I think it comes down to what we were saying before. The three phases. It started for me tools, then it was projects and programs, and now it's people. And that third one is the one that I believe in. It's the stage and phase of my career that I'm at, where I believe that it's all about people. And I think if we can just connect together on a human level, then that is the far best place for an improvement person to start. But it's a bloody hard slog to get there as well. And there's a lot of people that aren't at that phase, that want to just move the dial on a particular metric, that want to reduce the cost, and they can't see past that. So I'm not sure I answered your question then. I was quite.
No, you did. There's a hell of a lot in there, and I think you touch on a lot of interesting topics, perhaps for another day. Probably the things that resonate for me. You mentioned loneliness a few times. That's true. I think any leadership role is a lonely road, and it's hard. And I think sometimes people aren't quite prepared for that. I think that comes as a bit of a shock once you really get into it and you find out what it's all about, because you're going to face a lot of resistance. You're going to walk a very lonely path at times, and not as much as you want people to be happy and come with you, probably not at the start. You touched on humanity, and I think that's like hugely important. You have to be able to connect with people and meet them where they're at a very human level. You have to have, again, we talk about respect. Lots of people throw that respect for people thing around, but are we really living it? And again, we could talk about, I think the lean community or the improvement community is like any other community. There's a spectrum out there. There's all sorts of opinions and ways, which is great. I think the diversity, and there's rich conversations that happen. But I think there's a point there that sometimes I don't think we perhaps exhibit the values that we should, and that we should be respectful. It should be, we should be welcoming people with open arms, and be generous with our time, with our knowledge, and be respectful of, again, we don't have to agree with everybody, but we can respect those opinions and take it on board. And there is learning to be there if you really want to have it, and not dismiss things. Again, it might not be your cup of tea, but that's fine, and we don't need to publicly shame or humiliate people. But community, I mean, I think when we're looking to implement change into an organization, it has to be a community, whether it's a community within a localized team or a department, and ultimately as an organization, or sites are globally. We're building a community, and that community really requires everybody to buy in, everybody to understand the purpose and the meaning behind what we're doing, to have clarity of communication, to be engaged, to be involved, to have a voice, all of those sort of things. So I think the humility and the community part, I think, are the absolute key components. The tools, the tools are a distant second. They're important, of course, but they're a distant second. The outcomes are a distant third. And again, if we're ultimately from an improvement point of view, we are going through the process of improving the process. That's the job, to engage people along the way in that. And if we do that, then the results will take care of themselves. They always do. And again, it's that, like I said at the beginning, it's a trust in the process. And again, I think we're long enough in the tooth. We've got the expertise. We're not experts. Well, I'm certainly not an expert. I have expertise. I have experience, and I know that if I kind of 1 + 1 will generally equal 2.
Yeah. No, I'm completely with you. Completely with you. I think there's building capability of the process, building capability of the people, and building capability of ourselves is the way that I think that all. If we can get alignment to all three of those things, then everybody, it's a win-win for everybody. I'm conscious, Paul, that we've had a couple of questions come in that I would love your thoughts on, if that's all right. Karama said, after years of lean and improvement career, how do I transit from lean to general management if you want to move up in career ladder instead of being an external consultant?
Cool.
So
do it.
So I think I'll take the first bit of the answer, if you like. So I think that the biggest difference between somebody who's an improvement person and somebody that's operational, the big gap that you've got to try to close and give people confidence in is your ability to lead people, not your ability to just influence a program, project, or change initiative. And I think if you can get across your ability to lead people on a day-to-day basis, and because what we do is transferable in both roles, but I think that's the biggest. when I've spoke to change people, that's the biggest gap that they've had to try to close, is the confidence in other people that they believe that they can actually do it on a day-to-day basis, a leadership role. Paul, what would you say?
Yeah, look, I agree. There's certainly a large number of transferable skills there, but it is in essence going from a technical discipline into that generalist management role. So yeah, it often the big part is going to be that I was talking to an ops manager today who's responsible for 70 people, and it's a lot. It's a hell of a lot of responsibility. Again, you're dealing with all sorts of issues and problems and whatnot day to day. So you have to be prepared for that. You have to be able to dedicate a lot of time to that. And there's going to be a lot of reactive. Again, that's what I spend so much time coaching people in helping them manage their time. But again, it is a very broad discipline moving into general management. It is 80% of it is going to be around the people side of things and managing relationships, being able to communicate very openly and honestly and clearly over and over again. So yes, the continuous improvement skills certainly an important part of that. But yeah, sort of I would suggest go and perhaps get some mentoring or some coaching or some formal training in that space. Perhaps if you can transition in some respect, that would be a good way to do it. I don't think there's a clean jump from one to the other.
Yeah, Jim has just put an answer in as well. He said, Karam, the first step is to find an opportunity. I love that. Yeah, I love
True.
that. Rob Bull has asked a question, so he's still awake, which I don't know whether that's a positive or a negative, because our challenge was to send him to sleep. So he says, is it okay, though, to take people through those 3 phases, to take them on that journey? I think what he means by those 3 phases are the tools and techniques, the projects and programs, and then the people thing. Is it okay to take people through? I'll ask you this question, so you can answer it first. So, is it okay to take people on those across those 3 phases on that journey, on their learning, or is there a better way?
I'm going to always come back to starting from the needs. So I think one of Taiichi Ohno's favorite quotes, and the one that sticks with me, is start from need. So it's going to be those 3 things, or they're certainly not. It's not individually each of those 3 things. It's going to be all of those 3 things mashed up, dependent on the situation that you find yourself in. And I think as a consultant, you have to have that, I'll call it situational awareness. You have to have a 6th sense for what's going on. And it's just something you get better at, and you get a real nose. I mean, I could probably walk into an organization and very quickly get a sense of where the culture's at, where the leadership's at, where the process is at. I'm sure everyone listening would be the same. So again, you've got to really understand what the needs are. Some organizations, it's quite plain and easy to see. Some organizations, it can take some time to really get to the root of what's going on. That can be complicated with politics and relationships. I work in a number of family businesses, and there's all sorts of things there that you need to be able to unpack. I know Rob certainly works in that space a lot too. So I guess to answer that, you just really need to assess what's going on. I think ultimately you have to smooth the way culturally, and really start to set very clear. So we're talking about the process metrics and setting clear objectives around that. We need to set some clear some clear values, some clear behaviors and expectations around performance and behavior. We need to ensure that our leaders are in the right place, and we're starting to work with them again, getting them out of busyness, getting them clear on what's important, getting them clear on what leadership looks like. We need to start to set in place some long-term strategic goals and objectives too, and then start to link everything through. So I'm not sure if that really answers anything there, but it is very much horses for courses. I'll say there are fundamental things and they're fundamental approaches that sit there. So like I said, for me, it's never a prescription. It's never a cookie cutter approach, but there are some fundamental things. Yeah, I mean, from your point of view, Lee, what do you lead with? What are the go-to tools, or what are the go-to approaches to start to, engage people, to start to expose what's going on in an organization, to, I guess, to inform you as to where you start?
Yeah, so just before I answer that, I just want to just go back to Rob's question just really, really quickly about the 3 phases, because those 3 phases were how I've, I guess, internalized or summarized my journey to get to where I am. So my learning journey. And I think what happens is that the business will be going on a particular journey and will be starting at a particular place. The individual will be starting at a particular place as well, and wanting to get to somewhere. And I think those things are going to be different, and one will outgrow the other at a particular period of time. So I think that for me is, I think, coming back to what you said about the importance of understanding the need, understanding where we are and stuff. And I think it's from an individual perspective and a business perspective as well. And I think those 2 things are different. So yeah, I just wanted to call out that difference. I think each individual will have their own aspirations, desire to get to wherever they want to get to. And there's 2 journeys that we're on at all times, multiple journeys that we're on at all times. And then to answer your question, I think we was asked recently, actually, in a tender. We don't ever go for tenders, but there was a particular reason we wanted to respond to this tender, and in it said, what's the one thing that your most successful clients do that your most unsuccessful clients don't? And I thought that's a great question. And it comes down to, in fact, actually what Jim said here. The most important thing is a total commitment from the top. Improvement is not a task, it's a journey that must involve everyone. Attitude and behavior of the top person is critical. And I think whoever that top person is, and are they committed? And we had a conversation before we hit live on levels of commitment to senior leadership and whether they actually do change or not. But I think there's also a personal commitment as well from each individual, that when the door closes, or when the coach, consultant, mentor isn't there, have they or are they going to do anything different than they would from before that?
Yep.
And I think understanding these things, I think, is pivotal and key. And to fully answer your question, conversations and walking around, chatting to people with that unscripted is the way that I love to understand what's happening, is just by walking around, just making friends, connections, and just having conversations and seeing where they flow. And I'll do that with leaders, and I'll do it with people in the operation, whatever process or type of site it is. And I think that we've spoke a couple of conversations ago about the 2 most important metrics, I believe, are the number of thoughts that we're creating in people's minds, and then the length of time from those thoughts to conversation to action. And if in a short conversation I can find and discover or have shared with me something that isn't known somewhere, that for me shows a lack of communication, a lack of flow of communication, lack of the leaders asking the right questions, a lack of focus on the direction that they want to go. So I think there's a whole host of things, but for me, it comes down with leading with connection and just talking to people is how I would, I guess, the shortest answer to the question. Okay.
Yeah. I think also what you're describing is really lowering or eliminating the barriers and disarming people, because it's confronting, it feels threatening when, you know, an external consultant or even an internal person moves into the area and okay, what's going to happen here? This person's going to change everything, tell me everything I'm doing's crap, and blah 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 blah. And you know, immediately you can see it all over people's faces. I've had it, you know, so many times. So I think the ability to really disarm people quickly. You know, you talked about service and support, and that, yeah, you're there to genuinely ask questions and to be curious and to help people, because, you know, and I'll certainly find that, you know, the front lines of any organization, people just want help. They're frustrated, no one's listening. They know generally what the issues are, they've got great ideas, but no one's there to generally support them. It's just do what you're told, shut up, get the thing out the door, and that's that. And unfortunately, that's, you know, we're in 2020 and still find ourselves in that way. I think, like you touched on there with senior leadership and the support of senior leadership, there is no other way to be successful. You have to have, and I'll look at my clients and the clients who've been and realized real success versus those who just mediocre or not really had any traction, and it comes down to the owner or the senior leader. And it's probably, there's a parallel there between, you know, project based lean and, you know, a longer term, you know, continual view. So yes, you can have success if the top leaders just paying lip service and not committed and bought in. But again, it just can't work over the long term. You can't create, you know, even that revolution on the shop floor or get your middle managers in place without that, because it just can't. And I always talk about, you know, those people have to be unflinching, because it's going to be a tough journey. It's going to be confronting. There's going to be moments where they don't want to do this. They want to go back to what was easy because it's too hard and the pressure's built. But those leaders who can stay with it, trust in the process, and get through, they're the people who really, you know, will get the benefits from it.
Completely.
Yeah, and I think it's ultimately that I think there's a bit of education up front for those people. Is this what you really want? And I think that's probably sits with us to ask those questions and to give them the warts and all. Like, it's easy to sit there as a consultant and say, well, I'll get you, you know, shorten your lead time and improve your quality and take cost out of the business and yada yada yada. Great, you get the work, but then it's a shit show, because hang on, you didn't tell me XX and X and this was going to happen. So yeah, I don't think we're doing anyone any favors if we sugarcoat it, and we want to make sure that people are committed and they know what that journey looks like, and it takes time.
Yeah, no, definitely does. I think that's one factor that's come across it. So our journeys have been over a considerable number of years each, and the commitment to learning and stuff. I guess just a couple of comments, because I'm conscious of the time. Jack Little says, I'd say a lean, experienced GM is a great combination and opportunity for anyone. One of your biggest blockers becomes one of your greatest advocates. And I think actually the people that transition to do that from maybe an external or a consulting or an improvement role in to get to try to practice can actually then understand and see the challenges that of the reasons why that it's not just common sense, or there's been challenges and you've had resistance and pushback. I think that's just another great source of learning in doing as well. I think is key. Jim Longturn has said, brainstorming without a specific goal is a good way to start. It's just a conversation. You learn so much. And yeah, I think that's key, isn't it? It's just having conversations.
Yeah, and I think that's a really, really important word. And thank you, Jim. Like, it's, I just say, you know, for me, any lean tool should drive improvement. So it's not just for the sake of having it. It's got to drive, it's got to manage and control your process. It's got to drive improvement. The other thing is that any lean tool for me should stimulate a conversation, because that's where the good stuff is to be found. If we're not having conversations, then, you know, there's problems. So absolutely, again, obviously, visual management and daily huddles, things like that, should be stimulating conversation, but really any lean tool should get a conversation to happen. That way we can start to take meaningful action.
Dead right. Rob Bull has said, I always say to owners or leaders that it is what they do when I'm not there that is most crucial. And yeah, completely agree. That's the difference between a training course, reading a book. And I think when we started this conversation talking about learning, and one of the things that we consistently do or try to do is to learn as much as we can. And I think it's about learning something, but then doing something with that knowledge afterwards. I think it's key. And more people, more leaders, I think if they're paying for consultants, it's not to have them do to everybody else. There's got to be a recognition that they've got to do something different to themselves. I'm conscious that, so we've only got a couple of minutes left, Paul. Quick question for you.
Yep.
Your shirts that you've got on today, it matches the two folders that are above your right shoulder, and also your the poster that's on the top of your left shoulder is black and red as well. Is this a conscious? Are we seeing the true, real Paul Dunlop here?
You are. You're getting a glimpse, which is a worry for everyone.
Amazing. Yeah. And I think maybe we've just found the topic of conversation 5. Who is Paul Dunlop?
No, please, no. You're a menace, Lee. I'm not sure we can keep going on like this. Any other? For me, thank you to everyone who's come along tonight. We really appreciate that and appreciate the questions that keep us to idiots in a bit of a straight line, which is good. And hopefully everyone has got some value out of it. I know I have. I've learned again.
Yeah, no, perfect. No, honestly, yeah, thank you, everybody, and thank you, Paul, again, just for your time, conversation, chat, knowledge, and shirt. Yeah. Well, we'll chat again very soon, Paul, no doubt.
We will. Thank you, Lee. I appreciate that. Good work as always.